who holds the keys to the college football playoff race? I'm not talking about just one team. I'm talking about potentially impactful pieces for what we're looking at on Selection Sunday. And I said this in the opening. I'll say it again right now. This is not an exhaustive list. We may have to do several volumes of the most impactful pieces, who holds the keys to the college football playoff race. But I think one place we got to start is a team that is expecting to compete for a national title in 2023. A team that's been in the college football playoff now 2 years in a row. That's the Michigan Wolverines. The piece that's most impactful and the individual that I think is holding the keys for that team is J.J. McCarthy, the quarterback going into his second year as a starter there. And the question I have to ask is, if Michigan is dangerous already with what J.J. McCarthy was in 2022, which is not a bad quarterback by any stretch of the imagination. I think you can make a very real case that he's going to be the top quarterback in the Big Ten going into 2023. But the way they did it last year, it was bully ball. It was, we're going to move you against your will. We're going to hand it to Blake Corum. We're going to hand it to Donovan Edwards. And there's not much you can do about it. Okay, that's kind of how we're going to do things around here. So that was the 2022 formula. And we've said this a couple of times on this very show, but if J.J. McCarthy evolves and elevates his game and the offense evolves with him, how much more dangerous is Michigan going to be for everybody else? Because we talk about it with the game against Ohio State and the statement they made in the second half, and that's all true, but we got to talk about this. They weren't really running the ball all that well in the first half. It wasn't the black and blue downhill kind of attack that we had seen from Michigan during the year. They were actually having trouble running the football. At half, we were all saying, all right, Ohio State stopped the run. Let's see if they can, get some points here in the second half. Like, that was the conversation we were having in the press box before that second half avalanche sort of happened. So, to put it simply, if J.J. McCarthy and this Michigan offense are able to be as dangerous through the air, or even a variation of as dangerous through the air as they are on the ground, Michigan's going to have a chance to play for a national title. So much back on this team. They're in the top 5 in terms of returning production in the country. Like, Michigan expects to compete for a national championship. J.J. McCarthy taking that next step, and the offense taking that next step with him, quite frankly, is going to be, without a doubt, a piece that we have to watch in this college football playoff race. So that's Michigan for you. But let's move on. Let's go out to the West Coast now. Let's talk about the USC Trojans. Caleb Williams is the man, absolutely. But what about the defensive side of the ball? Talk about that in a second. Make sure you're subscribed right here to the On3 YouTube channel. We talk ball every single day, baby. You love this sport. We love this sport. Subscribe. All right? We're just getting started over here. All right? I'm just saying there's a lot more content coming your way when we hit football season, but we've been doing content every single day. We've been talking about this sport every single day on this very channel, on this very program, The Hard Count. All right? So make sure you're locked in. Now, as I was saying, Alex Grinch is the man in charge of the defense there at USC. And I think he absolutely holds a key for USC to play for the college football playoff. Because there's not so much a question about personnel as there was a season ago at USC. Like, they did a great job forcing turnovers, and some of that I think you have to credit Alex Grinch for. But the trenches, man, were not up to par. Stopping the run was a problem for USC, especially in big-time spots. Tulane had their way. Utah had their way, especially in the Pac-12 title game. And so with the way they've upgraded personnel-wise, especially in the defensive line, adding Bear Alexander, adding Anthony Lucas, that shouldn't really be the problem for you this coming season at USC, you would think. And if the personnel isn't the problem on the defensive side, well, who do you look to then? The guy in charge of the personnel. The guy getting this defense lined up. And I look right at Alex Grinch. We've said it many times here. The defense is going to be the difference for USC. And I think if you're not looking at personnel and you're looking at the coach, that's the difference between USC playing for a New Year's Six Bowl again and, having a good shot to compete for the Pac-12 championship, but maybe they fall short in that title game again, like kind of being second best. It's the difference between that and then playing for the college football playoff and competing for a national title, which, quite frankly, you have the quarterback to do. And that's the most difficult piece to acquire. If you have the quarterback, you got a shot. Don't let the defense be the reason why you don't compete for a national title in 2023. So for Alex Grinch, I think the responsibility falls on him. He will, without a doubt, be one of the pieces that holds a key for USC to compete for the college football playoff. And that in itself will send ripple effects across the country in terms of what USC does and who grabs one of those 4 spots. So keep an eye on USC, man. I think they are going to be a player in that whole conversation, to say the least. So keep an eye right here. We'll predict our college football playoff picks here in the coming months, coming weeks. Keep an eye. All I'm saying. All right, Tommy Rees is another person that I think holds the keys for a college football playoff spot for Alabama. We talk about it a lot on here. People just seem to have a short memory with Nick Saban. There's been sort of this, what's the right way to say this? People have sort of looked at Nick Saban and Alabama and said, man, they are what college football has been. And that's true. They definitely are what college football has been in the sense that they have reeled off their fair share, more than their fair share, really, of national titles. But let's sort of remind everybody here. Nick Saban and Alabama going into last year, this time last year, we were talking about them being the favorite to win the national title. And Will Anderson was a big part of that. Bryce Young was a big part of that. And it didn't go the way that you wanted. But Alabama and Nick Saban are very much so still one of the most talented teams in the country. They haven't recruited outside of the top 2 since 2019. And I say since 2019 because that's probably the class that is still on campus in Tuscaloosa. So they've recruited well even before 2019, but let's just look at that sample size. What I'm trying to say is the roster is still extremely talented. And so getting back to what I was talking about originally with Tommy Rees, Alabama, in my opinion, is going through a philosophy shift back to what they were. And what they were is bully ball. The word that comes to mind, or the phrase that comes to mind, is game control. How do you control the game? You control the line of scrimmage. How do you control the line of scrimmage? Offensively, you run the ball effectively. And we've seen Tommy Rees, when he was at Notre Dame, they ran the ball really effectively, almost 200 yards a game on the ground for the Fighting Irish. And so the reason why I think Tommy Rees holds the keys for Alabama, we don't know who's playing quarterback. Like, I would love to sit here and tell you that Jalen Milroe is going to be this, that, and the other for Alabama. He's put up this much production, so that then puts the responsibility on the defense or whatever it ends up being. We don't know. Could be Jalen Milroe, could be Tyler Buckner, could be Ty Simpson. Like, we just don't know. But I've said this before on this show. I will say it again. I believe that Alabama will want to have the engine of this offense be the O-line, be the run game, be the ground game. Quarterback's going to be an accessory. Quarterback's going to be the guy that just can't miss the open shot and put us in good positions. But Tommy Rees is going to be the architect behind this offense that needs to be consistently in 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3. Okay, we picked that up. Now keep the chains moving. Like, take time off the clock, put our defense in good positions. Like, it all starts with how you call the game and how you approach the game. And a big part of that, obviously, is going to be on Tommy Rees as the OC for Alabama. He's the mastermind behind all this now. And so the shift back to game control, bully ball, Bama starts with Tommy Rees. And if Bama can play game control on offense, well, then the defense, one, gets to rest because you're watching your offense go for a 10-play drive and score. Also, it probably puts them in good positions. Like, if you're playing game control effectively, you pick up a couple first downs, take some time off the clock, and worst case scenario, punt it back to your opposition and give the defense a little bit of breathing room. Now, I don't think anybody at Alabama is, scheming for a good punt game, but you hear what I'm saying. Tommy Rees, game control, all that, it starts with him as the OC. So he's definitely holding some keys for Alabama. Let's talk about Ohio State now. We had Ryan Day on the show last week, and he told us that they have to see what these quarterbacks look like when the lights are bright. I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but that was kind of the gist of what he said. Go check out that interview on this channel if you haven't already. Don't do that right now, though. Watch the rest of the show and then go do that. But what I'm trying to say is they don't know who's playing quarterback at Ohio State, but they have a first world problem there. Like, you got 2 5-star quarterbacks, whether it's Devin Brown, whether it's Kyle McCord. A lot of coaches would give their left arm and their kicker to be able to have one of those guys on their roster. They got both of them. The thing with Ohio State is the rest of the roster is in a place to compete for a national title. Ryan Day said it. He's like, we have some of the best depth on the defensive side of the ball. They got Marvin Harrison Jr. They got Emeka Egbuka. They got Travion Henderson. They got Mayan Williams. Ohio State's going to be really good everywhere around the quarterback. My question for the quarterback is, can you capitalize on all the firepower around you? Because I think the defense, quite frankly, I think if they had this personnel defensively from a depth standpoint and a comfortability in the scheme standpoint a season ago with C.J. Stroud, I think they probably at least play for a national title. Like, I think the defense probably holds up their end of the bargain a little bit better against Georgia in that college football playoff game. And maybe we have a different thing we're saying about Ohio State this coming season. But even so, Kyle McCord, Devin Brown, whoever it is, the quarterback room is what holds the keys for for Ohio State. Bama will be impacted, I'm sure, by what Ohio State does. So you catch my drift there, but quarterback room. Who's it going to be? Doesn't matter. Well, it matters, but it doesn't matter which name you're putting in there. They have to be able to capitalize on the rest of the roster and the potential of what they have in front of them for Ohio State. Pretty straightforward. Last variable I want to talk about, last key to this college football playoff race I want to talk about right now at least. So like I said, we'll probably do a part 2 here in the near future. The Georgia defense. And this is sort of twofold. The Georgia defense, which you could also look at the other side of that coin and say, well, Carson Beck is also a big part of that. But I want to focus on the Georgia defense here because I think there is the most proven with that group. You bring back 70% of the production from a season ago. Now you lose some key pieces now. Keely Ringo, gone to the league. Jalen Carter, gone to the league, even though he was dinged up last year. With this Georgia defense and what you have coming back, it will be a bit of a situation where, and I'll say it could be a position where you ask them to kind of hold it down while Carson Beck gets his feet underneath him. And I said this before, I think Carson Beck's going to be a great quarterback for you at Georgia. Like, I'm very excited about what he's going to bring to the table in Athens. I think he's going to be phenomenal. But the reality is, we haven't seen him yet. Rusty Mansell from Dogs HQ has a phrase. He talks about meaningful minutes. Haven't seen any meaningful minutes from Carson Beck. He hasn't started a week 1 game where it's, hey, Carson Beck, you're our guy. Going into the week on Monday, you're our guy. Like, haven't lived in that world just yet if you're a Georgia fan. And so the reason why I put Georgia and their defense as the key to the college football playoff race, can you hold it down while Carson Beck gets acclimated? Because really, there's a couple of games here that you're looking at. South Carolina early. If South Carolina scores some points and puts some pressure on the Georgia offense, is Carson Beck able to step in and answer that call to action? Play Tennessee second to last game of the year. That'll be a high pressure scenario for Carson Beck. Is the defense able to hold it down and sort of make it a game where he doesn't have to answer scores every single drive? I think they can do it, but I just need to make sure we're on the same page here. That's a very big variable for Georgia. I expect them to be up to the level or close to the level that they played at a season ago, but they have to do that early to give Carson Beck some time to sort of get his sea legs, is my personal opinion. So for me, the college football playoff race, some of the keys, you look at Michigan and J.J. McCarthy. Does he evolve and make them as dangerous through the air or almost as dangerous through the air as they are on the ground? Balance is just tough to game plan for. Alex Grinch, the DC at USC, a lot is going to be on him to capitalize on that new personnel they have. Because USC, man, they're not thinking just New Year's Six Bowl. They're not just thinking, oh, let's compete for a Pac-12 title. They got their sights set on a college football playoff berth and a national title. Because Caleb Williams, man, he ain't coming back. I'll leave it at that. Tommy Rees, the OC at Bama, the new OC at Bama, there's a new philosophy in Tuscaloosa, and it's a lot like the old philosophy they used to have, which is we're going to run the football at you, we're going to control this game, and make you say uncle. How Tommy Rees calls the offense will be a big part of that. The Ohio State quarterback room, you got 2 5-stars. Whoever steps in there has got to be able to capitalize on the talent on this roster. So many weapons offensively. The defense, I think, will be better. So you look at the quarterback and say, can you take us there? Devin Brown, Kyle McCord, doesn't matter. Someone's got to be able to get it done. It's a Ferrari they're driving, and they're not just going to take it out in the slow lane and kind of cruise. Like, it's going to be a Ferrari. We're going 80 miles an hour. The standard is the standard in Columbus, like Ryan Day said. Last thing, the Georgia defense. Got to hold it down while Carson Beck gets acclimated. Now, how long that takes, far be it for me to tell you, but I think there will be a point in time where the defense needs to be leaned on. You got a first-year starting quarterback or assumed starting quarterback with Carson Beck. So those are the teams that hold the keys to the college football playoff race. Getting ever so closer to week 0 of the college football season. Should be a whole lot of fun. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.